you got a new printer.
I did. Yeah. The other
It's
one,
very
I
colory.
just could never make it work.
I feel like printers these days have gone down to just... I don't understand why they're so difficult.
Even unboxing it, I'm like, I can tell the materials are like not as quality. Like this is literally cardboard. It's made out of cardboard.
I bought a printer for my house, printer scanner thing. Mm-hmm. It has never worked well. Never. Like not from the freaking first day. It just randomly disconnects from the network. And it said, hey, your scan's not connected. Like, okay. I'm not using it right now. And then if I go to turn it, every time I have to go to like turn it on to where I'm going to print, meaning it's already on, but I connect, it then wants to go through and do a test, which takes 5 to 10 minutes every single time.
I don't have that kind of time. What are you talking about?
I literally go, oh, am I going to print something? Push the button.
do I have it? How many days in advance do I have to let it know? Hey, so on Wednesday, I'm going to need to print something. Can you be ready by then?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
like
I need some TPS reports.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Just go ahead and get that thing printed. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow.
Exactly, pretty much. Oh, that's so annoying.
I can understand why they took a baseball bat.
Yes,
like, no.
Exactly.
Oh,
all right, y'all ready for this?
I don't want to be in a pound me in my...
What?
Do you remember that? What are you doing? I don't want to be in a pound me in my ass prison. What are you doing?
I forgot about that part.
It's like, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine.
That's fine. All right,
Maybe I shouldn't drink this water.
Yeah, maybe not.
That water is not...
Don't drink the water. If you've not learned anything, it's don't drink the water.
That sucks.
Okay. Starting and... Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think podcast. We are excited to be here with you as always, and we just did a little bit of research before coming on the show, just kind of figuring out, what are some of our stats, where are our listeners, and we are very excited to tell you, we're just always excited. I don't know, we're not on cocaine, we don't do drugs, we drink coffee, that's what it is. But we are excited to find out that we've got listeners mostly in the U.S., not surprisingly, but hey, we want to give a shout out to Smyrna, Georgia. So apparently we've got lots of listeners out in Smyrna. What's up, guys? I don't know what the greeting in Smyrna is.
How y'all doing?
But hey, out there, we've also got a lot of listeners in Poland and what was the other? Slovakia? Slovenia.
Yes. I wonder what accent is in Slovenia.
I was a little disappointed to see we don't have many Australians down under, so I thought maybe if we start using some Australian accents that we'd get more listeners, because they'd say, hey, there's old people down there. They've got a podcast called the Shrink Think Podcast. We should start listening. Maybe they can teach us a few mental health pieces of information. So for the rest of the episode, we're going to talk like this. Maybe we might actually lose our U.S. listeners, which is like, we've gained 3 Australian listeners and lost all of our
lost thousands of them.
Yeah.
Oh, my word. I cannot keep the Australian accent. I'll start off and do like 4 words or maybe a phrase. And
a syllable.
It just dumps right into British.
Yeah. It's tricky for me. I'll start Australian, then I'll go into like the New Zealand, because it's, the Kiwis is quite a bit different actually. It's got more of a nasally, more of a...
I'm sure they appreciate that.
Well, there's lots of YouTube videos out there that talk about it. Lots of like discovery exploration videos. People who are out in the wild doing lots of exploration, explaining things. So you get a lot of those syllables that sound like that.
Yes.
So anyway... Why are you even here?
Right.
You're here for the entertainment factor. But let's get into some meat and potatoes here. We're going to talk today about fixation on a problem versus fixing a problem. And I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago at dinner after work at our local spot, Flyboy. What up? Shout out to Gloria. But I have no idea what this topic is, so Nate, pick us up.
What had happened was
What had happened was
I was in a normal session, believe it or not. It was a normal day.
So it was like this unique thing that happened one time, a normal session.
And then all of a sudden, it occurred to me at some point during the week that I think people get fixated on the issue or whatever they're struggling with, and what that amounts to is focusing on all the details of whatever it is that's the problem, and
what they think is the problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what it is that they don't. Yeah, exactly. I mean, what they don't want to happen or whatever's going on, and that becomes the topic. But after a while, it's like there's no more to understand. So
let's just repeat what happened again. Let's just repeat what we already said and think and don't want to happen. And we're just rehashing, just rolling over in the mud.
Well, and so the fixation, in a way, it's like, if I can understand the problem, then I can fix it. So that's kind of the belief. And that's actually not really a false belief. The problem, though, is that if you are just trying to understand the problem, I mean, you can understand it, and some problems are simple. But if you aren't, I think there's what's the word I'm looking for? Like a solace or some kind of comfort in the way that you are actually working on something, but at the same time you're really not, because you're doing all this thinking work and you're taking it seriously, but nothing's actually changing.
Nothing's happening. A lot of words are being spoken, but nothing meaningful is actually being said, kind of a thing. And I have a question. Are you saying, if you're focused on the problem, would it be, and I would love an example, but I was kind of thinking, is it kind of like you're talking about the problem and maybe you're asking why questions, like, well, why did this happen and why did that happen, maybe, instead, but that it doesn't really matter, like, it happened, it just happened, and maybe you can't even know why, and why it isn't even helpful in solving the problem. It kind of takes you down a rabbit trail, for example. It's like, well, I don't know why they closed early on a Friday, they just were, and so that left me in a pickle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have a better example.
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking of, to be honest, is the folks that I know in my own life that I call them the self-help book club type of thing. And the reason why is because these are folks that will read a lot of self-help books, and they're just kind of into it, and but the reality is nothing's ever really different. I mean, they read about a subject, they look about whatever it is, they're really in tune to it at the time.
Like, they know a lot about it now, they can say all the words.
And we've talked about this before on our show, that people will kind of take those labels on, almost like a badge of honor type of a thing. It explains enough, so they'll say, like, oh, I'm this. Like, what's happening now in our culture is, like, at least this is happening in Portland, and man, it's like all the time. Somebody was just talking about this the other day, like not a client, but at I think I was at a little bar because we were all snowed in up here. Anyway, they were talking about like how their so-and-so had autism or something. And I'm like, and my first thought was, really? Are you sure? Because autism is the most, everybody wants to have it for some reason. Like, everybody talks about it. Like all the time, like, I have this, I have that, I have this, I have that, and that is like so
ADHD.
Yeah, ADHD, bipolar, all that kind of stuff. And so then there's this whole fixation on like all the details of that.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of like maybe the dingo ate your baby. Your baby. Well, was that the episode where Elaine was talking about the baby, everything about the baby on the Seinfeld? It's like everything, you're just saying the same word or whatever, and you're like, okay, that's not helpful. You just keep talking about the same thing or using this label, using this word, and it's kind of leading you in a wrong direction. It's not really getting you anywhere.
So here's a good example. So you guys that have listened for a while know that I do hypnosis. Okay, hypnosis is all about the power of suggestion, really, at the end of the day. And there was a story that my clinical supervisor in hypnosis told us, that was where basically what had happened was this, and I think I might have said this on an earlier episode, but this woman could not see. She was blind. And she went into a hypnotherapist because her doctor said, you are fine, your eyes are fine, you can see. Like, your eyes have the ability to see. So for whatever reason that you can't see, you should probably go, this is probably a psychological thing. So she goes in to this hypnotherapist, and the hypnotherapist just honestly only saw her for 3 minutes because the woman was so fixated on saying, I can't see. The hypnotherapist just told her, okay, you are no longer to use the phrase, I can't see. You are to replace that with, I can see. And in 12 hours, she got her sight back. So it's like, what people will do is you'll come in and you'll be fixated on all the ways that your problem works, whatever that is, like all the symptoms you have, all that, and you want to talk about it, which makes sense.
Right, because it's bothering you, it's clearly troubling you, you want to understand it, and you believe that by talking about it, you maybe can remove it.
And that's not wrong. I mean, because everybody has to start there, because your therapist has to understand what the problem is.
Yeah, I'm like, this is what I'm doing as a therapist. I'm like, are you telling me...
That's happening.
You're
right
like
now.
Telling me live on the air here. This is actually about you.
Oh, look, guess which episode's not getting published. Yeah. That's so weird. But there's a point at which a shift has to occur, and sometimes it's a hard one because it can feel like you're really ignoring and feeling like invalidated of everything you're talking. Like, what do you mean? Like, isn't my issue important and that kind of thing? Well, yeah, your issue is important, and now what are we going to do about it?
Right.
So I think I basically was coming up with this, and we're talking about it already, with the idea to just challenge people, like, okay, if you feel in therapy like your therapist understands the problem, then I guess the question that you would have to ask yourself and also the therapist is, what do we do now? Because there is a temptation on both parts to kind of fixate on the idea of, and neither one of you would probably call it fixating, but to really focus on how the thing is going, whatever this thing is. Like, because there's always a new way that it ends up occurring in your life. There's always a new shade. There's like a, oh, look at how it affected me this week. My negative thought patterns that I have, or whatever it is that you're focused on. Like, unfortunately for you, you have bipolar or something, and bipolar is kind of a bad example in a way, because that is something that you are going to always be managing, and there's going to be medication involved, diet involved, sleep involved, all this stuff. So in that way, that's like, it would be not fixating on the symptoms. It would be more focused on, okay, we expected that would happen. Were you able to do X, Y, Z this week? Not talking about how bad the situation was that you were in, because I'm sure it was horrible, but looking at, okay, as long as that's understandable, that we know like how these symptoms typically show up, then the question is, how are you managing them? Not the fixation on the symptoms themselves.
So I've got a couple of things that I'm thinking as you're saying that. One would be, it kind of reminds me a lot of the like self-limiting beliefs, or the self-talk that's saying like, I can't see, for example. It would be like, I can't do this. The little engine that could, it's like, I think I can. It's like the correction would be, okay, maybe I can. Or I was thinking about in sports, when you have that self-limiting belief, or any kind of like, weightlifting or training or whatever, you have to have this like positive mindset that says, okay, this is uncomfortable, or this is hard. I don't know if I can do it. But my friend and trainer at the time said to me when I first hired him years ago, he was like, I said like, oh, I don't think I can do this. And he says, well, give it a try. Maybe you'll surprise yourself. And that was like introducing this door in my mind of this closed room that had no doors or windows. I can't do this, right? He introduced a door that's like, well, give it a try. Maybe you'll surprise yourself. And I did the thing, and I was like, oh, wow, I did do it. And all of a sudden that door opened a little bit. And I was like, I wonder what else I'm saying I can't do that maybe I can do. Maybe I'll surprise myself. So there's like this, you have to have some idea in your head that says maybe I can, and you have to start pursuing that to see what's actually possible, not what the problem is telling you is not currently happening, which is not a fatalistic kind of a thing. Just because the problem is happening doesn't mean it's always going to be happening. Doesn't mean it has to always be happening. Because there's another part of that, I think, that you're saying, and this is the other point I wanted to get into, which is you are contributing in some way, right? If you're fixated on the problem, you're also doing something that's contributing to that problem, keeping you stuck. Like this woman, she couldn't see, and that was a real problem for her, but she was also saying, I can't see. And so the change from saying I can't see to I can see was a behavior change in her that opened up a door. Just like for me with my trainer, I tried it and I pushed through. I didn't let that problem or the limiting belief stop me, but I said, okay, I wonder if I can do another one. I wonder if I can do one more. I wonder if I can do one more, whatever. So there's something that you have to be able to do or be willing to do in the moment to confront the problem and move in a different direction around it or away from it, in order to see if there is a solution or a possible solution could exist.
Yeah, it's not only just looking at it. It's there. I talked earlier in this episode about this idea of this comfort. There is kind of an odd comfort that you're accomplishing something by talking about whatever it is. The problem is that you are also endorsing it, and at some point you're endorsing that it's going to stay.
Even if you don't mean to be, even if you can in your consciousness say, I don't believe that and I don't want that, what is happening by doing that behavior is you are endorsing it. And so then from that neurological perspective, you are also then rewiring or continuing to wire your brain, hardwire those neurons to tell you this is true, this is real, and it becomes stronger. So you can say somewhere else, I don't believe it, but the rest of your system is saying, yes, we do.
We're going to keep doing that right now. Right. We're doing it right now, actually.
We're more real than you are.
It reminds me of, I was actually tricked into doing something different in a gym. Like, so I had been doing bench press. I mean, this is back in the day, like high school, when I was nice and very good, very strong, very svelte.
Back when I was swole.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, I could not break 200 pounds. I was at 195. You're in these
199 and a half.
Yeah. There's and there was really no way to do it before you moved up to 205. You could go 200, but I just wanted to break through anyway. Long story short, you're bench pressing with a little team.
Yes.
Right? You got 3 people.
I know where this is going. I love these kinds of things.
Yeah. So without me knowing, these guys, I think they got sick of it.
Right.
And they and I did this. They're like, just okay. I said, you got it on there, and they go, oh yeah, it's on there. And they go, we got to do it 2 times this time. And I'm like, okay. So.
And they're saying like 195 or whatever.
Yeah, it's 195. Right. As far as my brain is.
Exactly. That's what they told you.
Yeah, right. So turns out it was 205, and I did it twice.
Boom.
And so it's like it's one of those things where when your mind, for whatever reason, kind of holds a value to something, it either takes you like what you're saying here, like crack open the door somehow, gotta crack it open, walk into it, or on the other side, you probably got to be tricked. Somehow it has to happen different, and I think it's interesting. As therapists, I think we a lot of times kind of try to do that, right? Like, I remember this case with this lady that she was awesome to work with. She's very funny. She did not want to be. It's kind of weird case because she did not want to be in therapy at all. She hated it. But since she was in there, she was going to try to work her butt off because she was in there anyway. And so I don't remember the exact situation, but she said something, and I said, "Oh yeah, kind of like when your dad used to talk to you like XYZ, you know." And she goes, sits there. She goes, "Well, that little paper on the wall you got, it's not just a piece of paper, is it?"
Like, no, I earned that thing.
Right. So but it's a situation, I think, as a therapist, when you're kind of trying to figure out, okay, this person's, they understand their problem, but they don't know really how to do something different. So speaking to your therapist out there, it's like, you want to be careful how much you're kind of agreeing with them, with what's going on, and then lean into going, okay, you can even call yourself out. Like, I think we've talked about this. I think we understand it. Is there anything that we think that we don't understand? Something that's not making sense? Or something that we feel like we need to understand more?
Yeah, because the thing I'll say about that is you have to change requires the proper orientation to time. So if you're talking about the problem, then you're moving backward in time, which is fine because you need to do a little bit of a hindsight analysis or whatever. You need to do some forensics and understand what happened, whatever. But the point of that should be to then bring that into the right now and do something with it right now. Do something different with it or respond to it, think about it, believe something about it that's different right now actively, so that you're oriented toward a different future. You're oriented in a different direction tomorrow and the next day and the next day, so that your future becomes a different destination than the same one you keep circling back around to over and over and over and over again to. So it's okay to talk about that problem in the past, but we need to then bring that into the present and say, like, this is what you're saying, like, okay, what can we do about this right now? Or what are we doing about it? What's possible for us right now? And in some ways, it's kind of, I think, admitting, what are some of the ways in which I have been circling back around and staying stuck? How am I fixating on the problem? Okay, let's not do that again.
Yeah, and then the temptation for you, the client, is to tell a therapist or to ask a therapist, okay, tell me what to do. Like, well, we are very resistant to that, because the problem with that is that we're not going to pay for any of the problem. Like, if you go out and try what we say, then you can blame us for, well, it just didn't work. And so then you can keep owning your problem.
Right. And round you go in your merry-go-round.
So it's more about, like, why don't you throw some ideas out there that you think intuitively would work, and we can talk through, like, whether or not what that would look like. Because ultimately what we're going for as therapists is change that is actually possible for you to do successfully, for you to actually be successful. And that might mean that you do a lot less than you think. Like, your mind goes, well, you should do this 4 times this week. And your therapist might go like, let's try to do it 1 time.
Or half of a time.
Or half
once.
What would that look like? I joke around with people that when it comes to decisions, like, I'm just not going to eat, like, for me, man, chips. I mean, I love chips.
That's true, he does a lot.
Yeah, like, and it doesn't show, luckily, unless you're watching video. But there are many decisions that go into getting a bag of chips. You have to walk to the cupboard. You have to open the cupboard. You have to grab them. You have to open them. You have to stick your hand in there to grab them.
Or your face.
Or your face. No, that's too messy. So my point is that part of what therapy is you look down and, like, let's just see what's actually going on in the process, which is different than fixating on the problem itself. It's beginning to go, like, where can we change this? So definitely an interesting and weird episode. Don't fixate on it too much.
Thanks for listening. We appreciate all you listeners down under.
Have a great day.
I had to get that in. That was good. I really liked that. I wasn't really sure where it was going.
Yeah.
I understand the concept, but I didn't really know in what context you were putting that in. And then as you started describing it and whatever, I was like, oh, this is actually really, really good. Like, I saw the vision and was able to, like, kind of ride that out with you into the sunset. And I was like, yeah. Gangnam Style.
Oh my word. That song. It sucks that it even just came back right now.
I know, I got you.
So horrible.
It's in.
It's in. No, don't keep doing
it's
that.
happening.
Do not.
I'm going to text you.
Do not even. I'm going
to, like, send you a Marco Polo. And it'll be playing in the background.
Marco Polo. Playing in the... No. I just had to track that. Why do you have a puzzle?